Hey, welcome to Detective X, which I guess is usually a handle that I use online, but I think I'm going to start using it as a name for a show where I just kind of talk about the stuff that I'm watching or playing or reading. We used to do a podcast called the Mashcast, and I guess I still do it, but we haven't done it in a long time. And I do that with Billy and Charlie. But this is going to be kind of a thing where I just talk about the stuff that may not necessarily be a video game, that maybe they're not into. And so I can just kind of talk about it myself here. Not to say that every time will be just me, but this will be something that maybe I can do more frequently, where I just kind of talk about the stuff I enjoy. And right now, the thing that's really been on my mind is the new Dragon Ball Super superhero movie. I watched it, and it is okay. So when they announced this movie, right, and they show this Dragon Ball sparking Budokai Tenkaichi quality, like Goku, and then the frame rate is all messed up. And I was like, that really put me on a sour note for the entire kind of ride we've had up until this movie actually coming out, right? Like I was constantly holding it against it that it was in 3D. And I really thought that they were going to surprise us with, maybe that the marketing was kind of lying or hiding some things about it. So we'll get into spoilers here in a second, but I want to talk about just kind of spoiler-free my impressions. Yeah, I loved it. I think this might be my favorite Dragon Ball movie, period. Right? Of course, there's a recency bias. Anytime I see one of these movies, right? You could have asked me probably after the Resurrection F, even. And I saw Resurrection F in theaters, and I think seeing that movie in theaters definitely enhanced the experience. I have only watched Resurrection F twice, once in theaters and then once at home when I bought it on the Blu-ray I have back here. And that second time was miserable. It's also a rare case where I've never actually seen that movie in Japanese. And it's like, do I owe it to myself to watch that movie in Japanese, or do I owe it to myself to never watch Resurrection F again? And I think I'm kind of on the latter with that. But I would say that even after that point, when I saw that in theaters, you could have asked me and I would have been like, way better than Battle of the Gods, dude. And that's kind of where I would be. Now, having said that, I'm still saying what I'm saying about superhero now. So the movie is just incredible. It's just so funny. And, when I watched it, and I don't speak Japanese, full disclosure. And I don't feel like not knowing Japanese got in the way of understanding the plot, understanding even just character interactions, understanding any jokes, and just in general, I just felt engaged the whole time, even though it's in a language that I don't speak. You catch words every now and again, like Vegeta saying "Taos," defeat, or they'll say Super Saiyajin. You catch little bits like that. Having just watched so much of Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, and Super in Japanese, you do absorb certain repeated phrases over the years. So, anyways, I think it's such a testament to this movie's storytelling capabilities that so much comes across, even though it was in a language that I don't speak. I think that if I ever do watch this movie dubbed, I'll have a problem. And I think a lot of people are going to have a problem. So the animation in this movie, this movie's 3D animated, and I'll touch on that in a bit, but the 3D animation, right? So like when you go see a Pixar movie, right, or the way Disney does their movies nowadays, the mouths are very specifically animated to the performances. And that's the way this movie is. So I think that watching this movie in English over Japanese lip flaps is going to be a really distracting experience for people. So I'm almost like morbidly curious to watch it. right? And let me say, I really I have a lot of affinity for the dub, and I have nothing against people who watch dubs. And I mean, if you ask me right now, I'll tell you Sean Schemmel is my favorite English Goku. So there's I have nothing against that dub, and I'll probably watch it at some point. But it's gonna be like I'll be sitting there the whole time, being like, these voices literally do not fit. So I would definitely recommend watching this in Japanese if you can. And if your theater is going to be showing it in Japanese, subtitled, definitely go that way for this movie. At least for your first time, watch this in Japanese, and then if dubs are what you prefer, watch it that way then later. But I think you might have a somewhat miserable experience watching this movie in English for the first time. So I said I was going to talk about the 3D animation. There's a surprising amount of 2D animation in this movie. And by surprising, I mean at all. None of that was in any of the marketing for this. And I won't really give away how it's used, but yeah, there's 2D animation in this. The 3D animation is, it's kind of rocky at first, and it's, the quality of it inexplicably drops during a couple scenes in particular, in about like the middle first third of the movie, like right as you're switching from the, anyways, about a third of the way in, you hit a scene and it's just like something feels different here. Other than that, though, I think like once you kind of accept what this is, it's like pretty good. I am not looking forward to a world in which this becomes the norm, but here it was all right. I don't want this to be the future of Dragon Ball, but the way it was used in this movie was successful. And again, I said, watching this movie in Japanese, the storytelling that comes across, that it's partly the performances, even though you don't know what they're saying, you can catch the tone and the inflections. But the other half of that storytelling is in, the way the bodies are moving and the faces are being animated, and that's all happening in the 3D realm, and it works. My biggest criticism of the movie, like production-wise, is probably going to have to be the music. We lost, he's still alive, but we lost Sumitomo from, conceivably, I guess, the franchise. I mean, who knows? I mean, right now, there are no anime plans, and he's not doing the music for Dragon Ball Heroes or Super Dragon Ball Heroes. There's a new person doing the music, and I don't have that name handy. I can probably get it handy real quick. Let me pull this up. Naoki Sato. So I think leading up to this movie coming out, a lot of people were talking about how this person has a pretty robust anime music career, which kind of, to me, was like a warning sign. If you do everything, well, you can do that well, but like, what's your signature sound going to be? And I think watching this, there really wasn't anything that stood out to me, right? Like, everyone hates Omen of Victory, right? From Super. Infamously, track 8. Sumitomo's magnum opus. Everyone hates that track, but you remember it. You know how it goes. It's playing in your head right now as I'm talking about it. There was nothing in this movie that even entered a memorable, state for me. There's one motif that happens a few times, and I remembered it as the movie was happening and been like, oh, I've heard this bit before. But as soon as the movie ended, it was like, zoop, it was all gone out of my head. So I think the music in this, it's like, if we ever go back to Super, be it, Moro Granola, or if we're just skipping the manga altogether, let's get Sumitomo back. I don't like how I want something that sticks in my brain. long after I've walked out of the movie. So in that way, this I think that for as much praise as I'm giving this movie, that for this to be the thing that I'm really hung up on is whatever. So I think now I want to talk about spoilers because I want to talk about yeah. Let's go ahead and get into spoiler territory. So if you really do not want to be spoiled on this movie, you really should unplug your modem because in about a week, the stuff that I'm going to talk about in this movie is going to probably start showing up in official marketing materials, but not just that. Your favorite artists online will probably start drawing this stuff, and it's going to be retweeted onto your feeds and shared on your Facebook groups or whatever. However you consume social media, this stuff's going to start popping up. So, and if you clicked on this, I don't know how you haven't already been spoiled. Having said that, get out of here if you don't want to be spoiled. Okay, so you're out? They're gone? Okay. So the basic plot of this movie, right, is in the marketing, is that the Red Ribbon Army is coming back, and they've got these two superheroes, Gamma 1 and Gamma 2. Pan gets kidnapped, Gohan goes crazy, and Piccolo's kind of there. That's how the marketing was. But this movie is really Piccolo's movie. Piccolo is like, yeah, Gohan, like for the thumbnail on this, right, is Piccolo and Gohan. Though after watching the movie and then looking at this key art, it's like, oh, Piccolo's the one in front, and it's. Piccolo is like the main character of this movie. Yeah, Gohan is kind of like the sidekick, almost more of a weapon that Piccolo like fires at the Red Ribbon Army, even though they're kind of egging it on themselves. But Piccolo is kind of like he knows how to push Gohan's buttons in a certain way to get Gohan to be an effective fighter. But really, like, the driving force of the movie is Piccolo, like, investigating the Red Ribbon Army, and he's, kind of creating this plan with Pan almost, and they have such a cute dynamic, and it's really, like, this is the silliest Piccolo's ever been. And Piccolo is a character who you've known to be silly sometimes. Like, I always go back to the fight with him and Gotenks versus Boo, right? When they're in the room of spirit and time, the hyperbolic time chamber. And Piccolo's like freaking out because Gotenks is acting up, and so he destroys the door, and then when they're in the temple outside and the temple's all getting destroyed and Piccolo's freaking, Piccolo's has his moments of being goofy, but this is by far the goofiest he's ever been. And I read that as like, Piccolo is known to be affected by small children, and this kind of just bolsters that, as seeing as how he was with Gohan. I mean, right, the biggest like kind of character change he had was his interaction with Gohan, and then kind of like mentoring Goten and Trunks a little bit. But then we see him with Pan, and it's very clear that like helping babysit and I guess be like the third parent to this little girl has really turned him into a different character, and it's cool to see that. I lost my train of thought, but yeah, Piccolo is really the main character. Gohan, once he shows up, I mean, Gohan's in the movie a lot, right? And Gohan is the guy who delivers the final blow to Cell Max, who is the big threat of the movie. And there had been rumors about Cell or Android 21, and it was like, I don't know what to believe. And it turns out they're both true. Android 21 does appear in this movie, or rather the human who Android 21 was based on, Vomi. I'm assuming that's how they're going to pronounce it, since we now know that the Dr. Gero family tree is all based on like throwing up or vomit. And Dr. Hedo is revealed to be their grandson. They had at least two children. One child was Agent Gold. I don't know what his like title was, but he's known as Gold. Gebo. They finally give him the official name since we've seen in Kakarot and then interviews maybe. But they do spell it as Gevo, but it really should be romanized as Gebo, but that's how they spell it, and so it's whatever. They have another child, and then that child is Dr. Hedo's parent. So Dr. Hedo is Dr. Gero's grandson. So we've got kind of like Dr. Gero's family tree lined out in this movie. But beyond that, Android 21's not involved at all. It's just kind of like a cool, like little Easter egg, like boom. If you know, you know, right? But Cell himself is referenced pretty early on in the movie, that they're building Cell Max, this kind of like character they're making based on Dr. Gero's plans. And Cell Max, right? So you've seen Bio Broly, right? Dragon Ball Z Movie 11, infamously kind of like people tear it apart. I think it's a great movie. It's not my favorite of the Z era, like the old Z movies, but I think it's like criminally underrated. This movie kind of like borrows from that a little bit, in that you've got this reimagined version of a beloved character, and I guess I'm using beloved loosely. I don't know who all out there is like crazy about Cell, but Cell Max is kind of like he's not quite Cell, just in that Bio Broly wasn't quite Broly by a long shot, but this is in that same kind of vein. It's not Cell, it's a different guy using Dr. Gero's plans that Dr. Hedo has been making, and Cell Max is awesome. He's really cool. I like the design. I like how every kind of like attack he has so much weight behind it. But yeah, they reference him like super early on in the movie, and I thought that really shocked me. What else in this movie? So we talked about how Gohan is the one who does the final kill on Cell Max, but it's he does that, and Gohan does a lot of fighting in this movie, and they kind of play off of him not being able to catch the Potara. Remember in the Buu arc, when Goku throws a Potara at Gohan, and Gohan's like, oh, and he misses it, and he drops and falls in some rocks, and because he dropped the Potara, Buu absorbs him, and then Goku gets the Potara back, and then he and Vegeta become Vegito. So they kind of play with this, like Piccolo throws him a Senzu, and Gohan drops it, and it's fun. But Piccolo is like, in part of Piccolo's journey in this movie, not necessarily a character journey, but he goes and he gets a power-up, right? And you've seen his power-up in the promotional art for this, but then it's like Shenlong, and I thought it was really cool when Shenlong looks and he sees who's summoned him in this movie, and it's like he's Piccolo, Piccolo-sama. It's really just like, because yeah, he knows Piccolo is God, right? Before Dende. It's just like kind of cool things where you're like, oh yeah. And this movie's kind of filled with stuff like that where you're like, oh yeah. Because they even reference like Mr. Satan, and when Carmine is presenting his case to Dr. Hedo, he's talking about Carmine, one of his presentations, he talks about Mr. Satan, who's we're not really aware of his strength, because remember, the world still thinks he beat Cell, and they talk about Majin Buu in this movie, and the world is supposed to have forgotten that Buu was a terror in the Buu arc. They made a whole wish about that 6 months after the Buu arc, when the Dragon Balls recharged. But it's still conceivable that the world tournament has happened twice. I want to say twice since the Buu arc, and we know from like supplemental data that Buu has won He was the semifinalist, second place in those tournaments, both of those times, to Mr. Satan, right? So you would think that, like, wow, the guy who got to second place both times against this guy who we're not even really sure what he can do, you know, that he would be in that presentation. So I let that slide, even though it's probably clear Toriyama forgot about that wish, which is hilarious, because that's like, that wish is referenced in the very beginning of Super, I think. But, you know, why would he be watching Super? I sure wish I didn't. Anyways, the movie rules, okay? And then Shenlong gives Piccolo kind of like a bonus. And I wonder if he gives him the bonus because he's like, he's hooking God, he's hooking Kami up, right? The guy who like created him initially, you know, if he's hooking him up, right? And this kind of extra power up that he gives Piccolo is Orange Piccolo, and it's just he uses that in conjunction with his gigantification that he used in the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai. He uses that to have like this crazy kaiju sumo battle with Cell Max. It's so dope. And the way that everyone fights together, and it's like, I don't know if Android 18 really did much, but Goten and Trunks become fat Gotenks, and it's awesome. And first of all, they're grown now. They fight as fat Gotenks, and they're effective as fat Gotenks. I mean, like, in a gag way. That he uses a headbutt. There goes my camera. Something's going on with this camera lately, and I gotta probably just update some firmware or something. But Krillin, he does both his Kienzan and Taioken to kind of like buy them time, and it's just like the Gammas come in and they realize they've been played and that they're not all the good guys aren't supervillains, and they're jumping in, and then like one of them sacrifices himself, and it's just so cool, right? And you get hype watching it, and so you're probably thinking, right? Like I have to imagine if you're watching this, you want to hear someone talk about this movie, but you've already know these things. I haven't been talking about Goku, Vegeta, Broly, you know, Beerus, Whis, who are in the marketing for this. Chilai and Lemo, they're all on Beerus's planet, and they're kind of just used to catch you up, like, hey, here's where the main character, Goku, here's where he is. Here's what he's doing. And what he's doing is same thing he does in the manga when he's not when there's not actually something going on. He's training, and he and Vegeta are there, and I guess we still have yet to see how they've gathered Broly up, because they haven't met Broly again in the manga, but at some point they'll meet Broly again and take him to Beerus's planet to keep him safe from Frieza, and because we know Frieza's kind of like something sussy baka going on with Frieza, you know. He still wants to I forget how the movie left off, but he wants to still weaponize Broly, I guess. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but so they've got Broly there, and then you get like the big Goku Vegeta fight, and it's nothing. They don't use any of their forms. They don't transform. No Ultra Instinct, no Ultra Ego. They're just fighting in their base forms, and it could seem like filler, and it's cool, but it's to me, it's like it's serving Broly as a character, because Broly can't control his power, so he's watching two people who can, and then we just as the audience are there along for the ride with him to experience that. Chilai's there, and you know, she finally meets, like it's something we've been waiting on. She meets Beerus, and Beerus thinks she's cute, and this whole scene is the one I was talking about, where it's like they didn't touch up the CG here very much. Goku's hair is all out of whack. There's stuff where Goku's arms are like on his hips, and his musculature is all warped in the same way that, like, do you remember Stretch Armstrong? It's like you warp it and then the muscles aren't rigged right, to use like a 3D modeling term. Like they're not rigged around the joint correctly, and so the deformation is all disgusting. That's kind of rampant through the two scenes that make up this bulk on Beerus's planet. But and then there's just kind of a gag explanation as to why they aren't privy to what's going on Earth with the Red Ribbon Army, and why Piccolo and Gohan are the kind of guys leading the charge on Earth. But you know, at the end, the very end credits, they appease to the fans, I guess. Vegeta gets the kill. He does beat Goku by like 0.00001. You know, they're both like exhausted, and Goku pretty much just happens to fall first. But it's played for a laugh, and it is funny. But I just wanted to gush about this movie and how much I loved it, and really loved it against all odds, because I was not expecting at all to like it. I really thought it was going to be miserable, but I was proven wrong. I still don't want this to be the future of Dragon Ball in terms of production, you know. But a lot of the staff who would have worked on this are over doing killer work on One Piece, and so, you know, let One Piece thrive, I guess. So those are my thoughts on Dragon Ball Super. What did Superhero? Let me know what you thought about it in the comments. And if you like this style where I just kind of like ramble, very freeform about stuff I enjoy, I'm not going to sit here and talk about Sonic Frontiers and how I think that game looks incredibly suspect, right? That's not the kind of energy I'm going to bring to the show. I'm going to talk about stuff that I enjoy, stuff I've been reading. You know, talking about One Piece thriving. I've been reading One Piece. I'm catching up on it. I'll be talking about that in a future episode. Some stuff I like to talk about. I like to talk about Better Call Saul, which is like my favorite narrative of all time. I'd like to have some other people on for that one to talk about it. I'd like to talk about Bleach. I just recently read through all of Bleach for the first time recently. I just kind of binged through Attack on Titan recently as well. Yeah, and then just as I watch movies, you know, I've been watching The Leftovers on HBO. I can talk about that. I'd love to talk about Lost as well, which I watched last year for the first time, and been meaning to rewatch. But anyways, I'm sure everyone's already turned the video off by now. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on both the movie and what you think about me doing these kind of like little videos where I'm just chatting and kind of just going off the cuff. I think for some of the other stuff like Attack on Titan, it's been a few months since I watched and then read that. I might need to make some notes about some of my thoughts. And same thing with Bleach. I'm a little bit a ways out from that right now as well. So let me know your thoughts just about everything. And do take care. I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed making it, and kind of like I need to drink some water. So take care.